What is going on, guys? This is Ryan with the Roundtable of Wraith, bringing you another video series here, focusing this time on the fairy princess herself, Miss Prism. If you have not caught Jim's Lessons in Levia on our channel, please do so. He uploaded a couple days ago. It's a fantastic video for those of you that are interested in building Levia. And here, I'm going to follow pretty much a similar format as Jim, where I'm going to show you guys my current deck list. I'm going to go over cards that I think are good, cards that I really like. But despite the title, Perfecting Prism, this is not the perfect Prism deck by any stretch. The purpose of this video is to start a conversation, right? I think our channel is, we pride ourselves kind of talking and having conversations with the community. We get a lot of action on our videos of people usually telling us the things that we did wrong. But we also like the people that are giving us suggestions that they've tried out as well. And that's the purpose of this video, is people that, like Prism, like myself. She's probably my favorite hero in the game right now, that want to have a discussion about Prism, and that want to come together and really perfect Prism. That's the goal here. So please, when I'm done with this, or when you are finished watching this video, comment on it. I will make sure that I get to as many comments, if not all the comments, as quickly as I can, because like I said, Prism's awesome. She deserves to be talked about, and she deserves for people to come together to build her in a certain way. I am going to assume that you, the viewer, know enough about Prism here to where I don't have to go over each one of her cards. I'm not going to talk about this as if it's like a deck tech video. I'm mostly going to just say why these cards are here. So if you're not sure about Prism, or you don't know exactly what all of her cards do, I would pause the video and go ahead and read some of those before you come back here. We actually have another video, our first impression video, where we do break down every single Prism card that released this set, which is kind of actually funny because a lot of my opinions on some of those cards have changed since I've been playing her, and since I've been really trying to test these different builds. So I would go back and watch that first, and then come back and check out this video next. So I'm going to start with my loadout here. So it's tight. 6 cards. That's it. I am not preparing for, different matchups. I'm not siding in all this null rune stuff. It is just 6 cards. The basic loadout is Halo, Dreamweavers, Footsteps, and Vestige of Soul. That's it. I don't venture off based on matchups. The only time I sub in a card is against the chain matchup, and I pulled in a Null Rune Glove instead of Dreamweavers. That's it. If you watched my Dorinthia deck tech video for the skirmish, you might maybe heard me say that I'm an advocate of not running Null Rune against chain, and that is true for Dorinthia. For Prism, that changes a little bit because of the Phantasmal Footsteps. So the Phantasmal Footsteps said that whenever you block with the Footsteps, you can spend a resource, and now that the Footsteps defense becomes 1 until the end of the turn. You don't have to spend 1 every time you block with them. Okay, keep that in mind. You spend 1 the one time, and now it becomes 1 the whole time. So in the chain matchup, the Footsteps kind of do work when they block, right? Because let's say in this instance, he plays a Shadow of Ursa, the chain player, banishes something, right? Then after that, the Shadow of Ursa resolves, then he plays Seeds of Agony and another attack, okay? You block, you pitch a blue, you block that Shadow of Ursa with the Phantasmal Footsteps. Now, Footsteps have 1 defense until the end of the turn, right? Now the arcane damage pops on his next attack with Seeds of Agony, and you have 2 floating resources. Now you can start sucking up those, or blocking with Arcane Barrier on the Null Rune Gloves with those leftover resources. Then he swings with another attack. You can just block because he broke the chain with Seeds of Agony. You can block again with the Phantasmal Footsteps without paying a resource. Their defense is still 1. Okay, so like I said, the defensive value of the Footsteps, they do work in the chain matchup. They can erase 10, 11 damage sometimes, but do be careful. If they ever block a 6 or more, they get destroyed. So be careful about that. If they Razor Reflex something, like a 3 cost, you block, they Razor it to make it a 6, then you're kind of in trouble there. So be aware of where you're blocking. Be aware of their Razors, if they're running Razors, whatever it might be. Okay, but yeah, Null Rune and Phantasmal Footsteps, they synergize perfectly together. That's why it's there for chain. Halo and Vestige is the other combo. Vestige of Soul is broken. It is bananas. I know there's a debate about Tunic. I know there's people are like, well, I don't like Vestige of Soul. Once you get the hang of it and you know when to pop your Halo of Illumination, or you have enough cards that go into your Soul, which this deck does, you realize the power level of Vestige of Soul. So you'll see I don't even run Tunic anymore. I don't even run Skullcap anymore. So for you budgeters, which this isn't a budget build, right? You still have 2 legendaries, but you don't have to buy Skullcap and Tunic. That's kind of cool if you want to go that route. I will say, know when to pop Halo, right? Beginning of the game, first turn, just trying to get a card in Soul so you can set up Prism, not the right time to pop Halo. I will explain kind of a situation or 2 situations where I like going for the Halo play, but make sure you have a reason to pop Halo. Usually I try to play it as offensively as I can, but sometimes you'll find yourself defensively playing it as well. Vestige still triggers on your opponent's turn. So if you pop Halo on their turn, you still get that trigger, and now you can pitch for additional resources. So this is the loadout. If you guys like Tunic or Skullcap, or you hate Vestige of Soul, or you have a question about Soul, let me know. I will sing the praises of the Vestige of Soul from the tallest mountain. So I would love to have that type of conversation. Loadout Herald wise is pretty standard. I think I'm gonna go over the Heralds first. So Protection, I run all 9. Triumph, I run all 9. Protection, I might be cutting down a little bit. I might go to 1 or 2 reds. I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm definitely probably going to cut 1 red in favor of the 3rd Ode to Wrath. I will get there in a second. But Protection just gets covered up all the time. Your opponent is afraid of it because they know what it does. And so I think there's just more value running other cards. I'm not saying that them blocking out a red Herald of Protection is a bad thing, right? You want to rip cards from their hands. But I think there can just be more value elsewhere in the deck. So that's why I think you can go without the 2, or go without 1 red. Herald of Triumph, I have changed my tune. This is the best Herald in the deck. It is no longer Herald of Protection. It lost its crown. And the reason being is because it just makes all of those generic 6s 5s. That's it. If you're against Dorinthia, if you're against Katsu, if you're against even Leviah sometimes, a lot of her attacks only do 6. So if you get that -1 off of Herald of Triumph, then you don't really have to worry about them popping Phantasm. Reinhardt's got a couple of 9s, with Alpha Rampage. They've got 7s, those brutes. Bravo would be the one that this is ineffective against because of his 9s, his 10s, his 11. He's got a lot of 8s. He's got a lot of 7s. So against Bravo, this is pretty ineffective, or not as effective, I should say. But yeah, run all 9 of these if you have the opportunity to. Wartune Herald is still a pretty big staple. I have shaved off 1 red. I might add another red back, but again, I have to find room for it. I haven't really missed having 3 reds because, by the time it would matter, the game's pretty much over regardless. But the 1 for 6, 7, and 5 is just fantastic. So I would run a majority of these. I could see people shaving off the reds if they don't really want red in your deck. It doesn't really synergize well, but the 1 for 7 I think is a little too good to pass up. Erudition, best card in the deck. Have a reason to play it, right? I'm not going to explain why it's the best card in the deck, but have a reason to play it, right? I find myself oftentimes, if I get in the first 2 turns, pitching it early and then waiting until it comes around again to start chaining them together. If you can get 2 to the bottom of your deck, then you're going to be in great shape. A lot of Prism games that I've played come down to a grind where you do go through your deck 2 or 3 times, and to end up with an Erudition into an Erudition usually closes the game for you. Judgment, another great one. It's a chain killer, obviously. But Judgment is also sneaky good against Dorinthia and Katsu. I find myself running this just as another yellow 6, even in matchups where the on-hit effect doesn't really matter. But Katsu has to banish that card in order for it to be played, the combo card. Dorinthia has to banish a card off of Stinging Steelblade. So sneaky good against those 2. Obviously good against Chain. I usually run it in every matchup. It's pretty solid. And then rounding out the Heralds, I run all 3 blues. And that is because this is a Vestige of Soul deck, so you want those blues to be able to pitch for 4, and you want to have as many as you can. You don't want to clog your deck, but 18 blues, they're all Heralds, so they fit pretty much everything you need to do, whether it's Genesis, whether it's pitching for 4, whatever it is, it all satisfies every check mark. So run the Heralds, 18 blues, pretty standard, I would say. I wouldn't risk going down to 15. But it's definitely a play preference. If you play with a light a skinny amount of blues, like 15, and it works for you, great. I like the number 18. It's clean. So that's like the Herald package, right? That's the first package. So against like Dorinthia, Katsu, Chain, you're going to go more Herald aggro-y. There obviously are some exceptions, as well as kind of hybrid builds that you might run. Like Chain, I run 9 different auras. I'll talk about the Chain matchup at the end. But that's your Herald package, right? If you're going to go aggro, run all of them. Don't side them out. Go all and then pitch a yellow and just keep swinging away with that. The tough matchups like Rhinar and Bravo, those are the ones that you have to kind of get creative about. So we'll talk about the auras in a second. Just the other fluff cards that I have, Command and Conquer, great card, obviously great. If you don't have it though, it's not the biggest deal in this deck. It's great to have. It synergizes well with your yellow pitches, but not mandatory. So you don't have to go and break the bank for the Command and Conquers if you want to play this deck. Play 3 yellow Herald of Ravages. That would be a good substitution for this deck. 3, probably not Herald of Tenacity, but yeah, Herald of Ravages would fit well. If you want to run Enlightened Strike, you can run Enlightened Strike. This card's really good in the mirror, so it pops Phantasm. It's obviously good in the mirror. But yeah, great card. If you don't have it, though, it's not the end of the world for this deck. Phantasmaclasm, another great card. I sided out against Rhinar and Bravo. So against Rhinar and Bravo, I'm going to side out all of these reds. So all of the Herald reds, I'm going to side out. And anything that can get popped easily, like Phantasmaclasm, and you're going to convert into a more of an aura control build, which I'm going to talk about right now. But yeah, Phantasmaclasm, very good hand fixer. You know what's coming for your opponent. Messes with Chain pretty much. This is a Dreamweaver target just because it does so much damage, right? I usually save my Dreamweavers for either Phantasmaclasm or Erudition or Judgment, depending on the matchup, if I need that hit. But those are pretty much it. I wouldn't pop it for like a regular, Herald of Protection, unless you're going to win the game. There have been situations where that has happened as well. So the Aura build, right? In matchups where the Heralds are not reliably going to hit, like Bravo, like Rhinar, even Levia, if you want to run this against Levia, you're going to have to convert the deck into the Aura control list, right? That's where these prismatic shields come into play. Originally, when I started playing Prism, I figured this was kind of a wasted card. 3 didn't feel good, just get 3 Spectral Shields. But being played as an instant is very flexible. You can kind of set your opponent up to take damage on their turn when they're not expecting it. And having 3 shields, obviously, is great. So when you're playing the Aura control style, Prismatic Shields, all 3 of them go into your deck. I don't have the ability to sideboard or show you guys my sideboard from this screen, but I will post my deck list so you can see. I pretty much side everything out and just add back depending on the matchup. That's just how I choose to do it. So I think my sideboard, if I were to pick it up, is like 20-something cards. And my main core is around 40 or 50 or something like that. But yeah, that's just kind of how I've done it. And then you get to the auras. So Genesis is the best one. I play this in the most matchups. It is basically a baby Arclight Sentinel in that once it hits the table, your opponent has to deal with it on their turn. So if they don't, you're going to just overwhelm them and you're going to win. It's just as simple as it gets. If they leave Genesis around and you're able to put a card in your soul every turn, turning on Vestige automatically, and you're drawing a card and creating a Spectral Shield, you're just going to win that game if they leave that thing sitting around. If you get 2 Genesis out, it becomes a headache. I've never had a game where I've gotten 3 because usually by that time they destroy 1 or 2 of them. But 2 Genesis, you get double procs. Right? Put 2 cards in your soul, or put 1 card in your soul, create 2 Spectral Shields, draw 2 cards. It's fantastic. Okay, so turning on, that's another way to turn on Vestige without Halo, is if you play the Genesis maybe on the opponent's turn after they pass, play it, it's an instant, and then you can kind of do some shenanigans there. The best play is if you get this in your opener and you're going second, before your opponent passes their turn over to you, you drop down a Genesis, now you get to draw back up, and you get to just kind of go to town early. Merciful Retribution. So in the preview video, I said that these auras were not worth playing. I was wrong, mainly because I hadn't tested every matchup enough. But Merciful Retribution, fantastic card. Absolutely fantastic card. This says every time that your opponent or destroys an aura or a non-token light card, they take an arcane damage. So if they destroy a spectral shield, every spectral shield that they destroy, they take arcane. So if you have 5 out there and they destroy all 5, they take 5 hits of damage for that. You don't take anything usually because, 5 shields is blocking pretty much any attack in the game right now. And so if they ever destroy a Phantasm card, it goes in your soul and they take an arcane damage. If they destroy an aura that's not a spectral shield, they take an arcane and it goes into your soul. So this is another way to turn on Vestige. Okay, so great card. It's also a card that you can surprise a lot of opponents and just lock them out of games. I played a game yesterday against Brute where I had Ode to Wrath and 3 spectral shields. He rolled the pants, or the scabskin leathers, which I've just gotten used to calling them pants. He rolled a 6, but in response, he was on 1 health. In response to him rolling the pants, I played Merciful Retribution. So now, even if he attacks, if he destroys 1 spectral shield, game's over, because he doesn't have Arcane Barrier, right? So there are sneaky plays to force your opponent to take damage that they weren't worried or accounting for, or win the game, right? You can cheese somebody because you have this in your hand. Maybe you built up, if you can play Prismatic Shield into this, it would be a tough ask, right? But Prismatic Shield into this, when they're on 3 or less health, you win the game. So something to think about. Just know that play exists, and it's extremely powerful. The other aura here is Ode to Wrath. I will have a 3rd copy of this in by probably as soon as I stop this video because it's extremely important in those control matchups. Same game with that Reinhardt player. He was up by, 10 health at one point, and I got Ode to Wrath on the table, and I just started chipping away. It adds a damage every time that you deal a damage, so they lose an additional health. So basically your shield pokes now count as 2. So it's 2 Gogan, 2 Gogan, 2 Gogan, 2 Gogan. If you have 4 or 5 shields out, which is, it's a big deal. It adds up. It's another one where if they're not accounting for the additional damage and they think that they're way ahead and you get this on the table and they don't respect it, then you're going to claw back and you're going to come back. If you get Ode to Wrath and Merciful Retribution on the table at the same time, every time they take an arcane damage, it's an additional arcane, or they lose an additional health. So it gets nasty out of hand really quick. So just know your combos, know your auras. The aura control variant, guys, takes a lot of practice. It's something that I'm still working on. We are going to the Calling in Vegas in September, and this is a deck that I'm considering bringing. I'm not going to say that I'm going to bring this deck or even this deck list here, but this is a deck that I'm considering, and part of that is testing out those really hard matchups that on paper seem terrible for Prism because of the Phantasm pops. These auras really kind of change that and make the matchups a little bit more manageable. I'm not saying that you'll be favored in every Bravo match that you face. And a lot of people are packing time snaps because if they have to destroy one of these, usually it eats up their turn. Time snap gets around that. So that's something to be aware of too. Time snaps and time skippers can definitely ruin your time there. I'm going to talk about the library before I get into Tome and then Arclight Sentinel, and then that'll probably be the deck. Cataclysm's there. Great card. Good in the mirror. I would not run less than 3. Library, okay? I don't want to say this because, it is a Fable. It's very expensive. But library is a big deal in this deck. It is something that, when it hits the table and you can finally feel the power of it, it's crazy. If you have one, play it in your Prism deck. If you don't have one, and you can acquire one via trade or something like that, I would definitely recommend it. Don't buy it unless you have the funds to do so. It is very expensive, obviously, because it's a Fable, but the power level of this with Prism is very strong. If you get it out early against Brute or Bravo and they don't destroy it, they're going to have a hard time, right? This game is, as of right now, this game is centered around characters that have 4-card hands. Anything that breaks that rule, and if you can get a 5-card hand, it's why Nourishing Emptiness is so good right now, especially in Dorinthia. If you can give her a 5-card hand or a 6-card hand with Arsenal, you're just going to just win. That's just it. You're going to win because it gets crazy out of hand. You can block. It basically turns off Intimidate from Reinhardt. If he intimidates and you have a 5-card hand, now you have 4 cards. Even if he intimidates twice, you have 3 cards. You could fully block pretty much anything. It turns off those barraging beatdown abilities. He can intimidate 3 times and you have 2 cards to block with. Granted, you don't have a tome or an aura, but still, that's the potential there. So library is crazy. You don't need it, but there is no card that I would recommend to run instead of this. It would just be additional Herald somewhere along the line. Tome of Divinity. This is the big instant. This is the reason why you run Vestige of Soul, in my opinion. This is what you save your Halo for, in my opinion. If you pop Halo on your turn and you have Tome of Divinity in your arsenal, I would recommend trying to get it in your arsenal because that's going to maximize the effect. Then you pitch 1 blue, and now you get draw 3, right? I've had turns where I've played Tome of Divinity, draw 3, play Tome of Divinity, draw 3 more. Now I play Herald of Erudition. That hits. Now I draw 2 more. And all this time, if you pitch a yellow, you're just going again. I mean, you can play 5, 6, 7 cards plus shields in 1 turn, which is crazy. No other character can do that with the exception of Chain, but he has to, do it from Banish, whereas Prism just keeps drawing cards from her deck. And Tome of Divinity is a big reason. So if you can chain these together, tomes together, or eruditions together, you're in really, really, really good shape, and you're putting your opponent under tremendous amounts of pressure. Another time where I might pop Halo is when I have 2 auras. If I can play 2 auras, like if I arsenal one, I have one in hand, I have 2 blues, whatever it might be, then I will pop Halo there and play both auras at the same time, because that's very hard for your opponent to deal with. That's one of those where maybe on their turn, I'll pop Halo, drop down a Genesis, drop down an Ode to Wrath, and then on my turn, it's just feeding Genesis, poke, draw a card, whatever it might be, and then they have some decisions to make. You can almost time walk somebody with 2 auras, because if they attack one, even if they have a time snap, they have to attack both, and now you have a full hand to kind of mess with. Last card I'm going to talk about here, Arclight Sentinel. So I know people are running the time snaps, I know people are running time skippers, but in my opinion, this card has just changed a lot of games and matchups to where I would not consider not running this in certain. Like against Dorinthia, I run it every time. All 3 every time. It just basically just wins games against Dorinthia. Against Chain, if you can set it up, if he's got like 5 Blood Debt and he plays the Seeds of Agony, you can play this in response to the Seeds of Agony, and now his next attack has to go at that. And sometimes he's taken... I played a Chain game where I think I forced him to take like 15 Blood Debt or 14 Blood Debt, maybe something like that, right? And I won the game because of this card. So I know that there is a hard counter. If I see a time snap on the table, I will pitch this because I know that there are 2 more in my deck. But if they don't have time snaps and they're setting up for this major turn, put this down, shut the door on them, and then just watch them kind of cry. Be like, well, that sucked. But be aware that this card is being played around because it's so impactful that people are slotting in extra or taking away slots in their deck for time snaps. Against Chain, right? If he's running time snap potions, there's a shot that he banishes it, right? And if he's running time snaps and he banishes it, that's an ineffective banish for him, and you win anyway. So this card forcing him to run time snaps is a great thing. So that's the deck list, guys. I'm gonna post it on in the description of this video. Leave feedback. Like I said, the purpose of this video, I showed you guys kind of my cards and what I've been liking, but there are cards that I might be sleeping on, especially like, generic illusionist cards. I don't run Phantasmify. I would like to see how those would do. Maybe they fit in here that I'm just not aware of. I don't run Enigma Chimeras, and I know that those can be insane. So interested to hear some of your opinions and some of the cards that you've enjoyed playing with. Also happy to answer and feed any questions like how I play certain matchups. I can give you guys like my sideboard notes if I have them. I don't really have them, but if that's what you're interested in, I would be happy to provide that for you guys as well. I'm going to make a point. I'm going to try to get more gameplay videos on the channel of maybe showcasing some of these different variants, whether it's Herald Aggro or a control. So hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some gameplay videos to go along with this video. If you guys liked this video, please let me know. I would love to make more in this series. If you hated this video, let me know as well, and then you'll never see me doing one of these again. But the hope is, through Lessons of Levia, perfecting Prism, some other alliteration. Hopefully it's canceling Chain or something like that, so we don't have to deal with it anymore. But these videos are supposed to be just engaging videos, right? We want you guys to engage with us. We want you guys to give us your feedback, and that's the purpose of this. So if you're up for that, please do it. It would be great, and I would greatly appreciate that. Hopefully I hear from you guys. Hopefully I can talk to you guys. But until next time, whether it be in part 2 of this or on some podcast or gameplay video in the future, this has been Ryan with the Roundtable of Wraith, and thank you.